I find it almost a physical barrier. I would have my script ready, I'd have the camera and all the lights, and I couldn't say any words out. I couldn't get started with what I wanted to say. There was a real barrier that I didn't expect to be there, because when you think you're sat alone in a room with a camera, nobody's watching.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the YouTube Creators Hub podcast. If you're a content creator looking to start, grow, and monetize a YouTube channel, this is the podcast for you. So if you haven't already, subscribe to the show. That way, every Friday when I release a new conversation with a wonderful content creator, you can be notified in whatever your podcast player of choice is. We're also over on YouTube. You can just search my name on YouTube and you can subscribe to the show there if you prefer it in video format. As far as what we offer creators, we have three main things. The first one is I offer private one-on-one coaching. All of these links will be in the show notes. Number two, I offer a little bit cheaper, a little bit lower barrier to entry channel audits and reviews. That's a newer service that we're offering but has been very popular. And thirdly, for $5 a month, you can have access to our Creators Corner community group. It's a mastermind group where you can hang out with other content creators over on Discord and be active in all of our monthly mastermind calls, as well as exclusive podcast episodes that I release every Friday as well. So we got a spot and a place for everyone, regardless of where you are in your YouTube timeline. So with that said, let's go ahead and sit back and enjoy this week's conversation. Welcome back to this week's conversation on the Creators Hub podcast. I'm joined today by Kieran Westwood. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Kieran before we get started. Kieran is a writer, editor, and YouTube content creator. His fiction writing has been published in online journals and shortlisted for several awards and prizes. His educational YouTube content has been shown in classrooms across the world as a teaching aid, and his editing work has received unanimously positive reviews from the writers that he's worked with. Over on Kieran's YouTube channel is just his name, Kieran Westwood Writing. He has almost 40,000 subscribers and just over 170 videos, and he's built a really nice community over there. Kieran, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Dusty. How are you?
Doing wonderful. I'm really looking forward to conversing with you about your YouTube journey and everything in between. So let my audience know, what was the origin story of the channel? You obviously were a writer, and then that led you to create content to help other writers. So tell us the full story of how this came to happen.
Yeah, so I've been writing for a good 10 or 15 years now. And the thing about writing is it can be quite a lonely, isolated pursuit, really. And I found myself after a decade or so of just plugging away at my stories that I wanted some interaction with other writers to know where I was at with my skill level and how I compared to other writers. And just I needed to connect with people that understood the craft in the same way I did. So I thought, I'm going to challenge myself to make a YouTube video. And this was just as the pandemic really came in. So I found I was at home more and I thought I could probably manage this. I jumped into that. Originally, I was aiming to create kind of a vlog channel about my own writing, potentially as something that I could show to literary agents or other people to just demonstrate that I had a following, that kind of thing, because I was pursuing traditional publishing at the time. But as I started, I changed course based on the results I was getting on my videos to be a bit more, teach a little bit more, though I'd try to stay away from that word if I possibly can, but to show things that had worked for me in my writing and that might potentially help other people too. So I leaned into that, and then it started to pick up a bit of speed. So yeah, just before the pandemic, as everyone did, I thought I'm going to try this YouTube thing after watching YouTube a lot, and just jumped headfirst in and went for it, even though it was a challenge. And because I'm quite introverted, so this kind of thing was way out of my comfort zone to start with, but I quickly settled into it after a while, and something that I really love doing now.
There's a big difference in writing and creating videos. I know that sounds silly,
Yeah.
but when you think about it, you mentioned that you're introverted, and most people think of creators as being extroverted. I've actually found that to be not the case. I'd say it's about 50-50, and I don't think just because you're extroverted means you're going to be a great creator. So I'm glad that you mentioned that and you're open. In these early days of the channel and as it was starting to grow, what were maybe one thing or multiple things that surprised you about being a creator or attempting to try to grow this YouTube channel?
The first thing I think was a practical thing. When I first sat down to record my videos, and this went on for maybe 3 months or so, I find it almost a physical barrier. I would have my script ready, I'd have the camera and all the lights, and I couldn't say any words out. I couldn't get started with what I wanted to say. There was a real barrier that I didn't expect to be there, because when you think you're sat alone in a room with a camera, nobody's watching, nobody can see what you're doing. But I was still, my own like embarrassment almost at myself was stopping me from making any progress. So that was an initial barrier that I really didn't see coming. But after that, once I repeated the process many times, I got past that a little bit, and that was easier. But really, I was expecting a much worse reception, not necessarily in terms of views, but in terms of, I'm talking about craft stuff, what works for me as a writer and what doesn't work for me. It can be a bit contentious sometimes. I was expecting a bit more criticism and a bit more of a sense of, who are you to be telling anyone to do anything on from my audience and from viewers, and that didn't really come. It was instead more of a collaborative kind of reaction of people that either agreed or disagreed. They were saying, that's an interesting point, but have you tried this? And it quickly became a swapping of ideas rather than just talking into a void. And that was really valuable.
How did you get past that thought of we call it imposter syndrome, of the statement that you made about, why would anyone listen to me? Why do I feel like I have the authority to even speak on topic A or whatever it may be? What did you find worked for you to get beyond that barrier?
It was a mixture of exposure, first of all, just doing it more and just getting past that and manually overriding it, if that makes sense. But also, the way I've always positioned my advice in my videos is, this works for me. This is how I approach it, and I found that it helps me do this. So maybe it might be worth you trying that if that appeals to you. It's not a sense of prescriptive advice in that respect. I'm not saying, if you want to sell a single book, you have to do this. I would never do that, because writing is so subjective. There are so many different ways to approach every aspect of it, that I thought, if I authentic and honest upfront about what works for me and also what doesn't and what I'm not good at, then nobody really needs to say, you're not authentic, or you're not, who are you to tell anybody to do anything, because I'm just a person sharing some of my own experience. I'm not positioning myself as an expert. And over time, I've built up a few more accolades with my writing. I had a few more stories published, which also helps, but I'm still very much get imposter syndrome. It's just a thing that I live with and just manually override. As I said before, it never really goes away completely, but I think that might be the case for a lot of creatives. You just have to carry on regardless, really.
The first line in your bio on your YouTube channel says, "I'm Kieran. I make videos supporting and encouraging writers to tell their stories and to have fun doing it." So it sounds like you have a pretty good target on who your audience is. As far as, did you start with a clear niche or a clear space in mind? And how has it evolved over time to be either more narrow or maybe even more broad than you initially started with?
Yeah. So I started intending to just showcase my own writing or my own writing process. But as YouTube will quickly let you know, at the beginning, nobody really cares about you or who you are. So I did change from that to giving the advice-based stuff. But it's narrowed since then, because a lot of or quite a significant amount of the writing advice on YouTube tends to be geared towards publication or towards success or making money or New York Times bestseller list type stuff. Of course it is. But I knew that I didn't have the credentials or the knowledge to do that, really. So what I did have was to understand that writers might be feeling the same way I was, which was a little isolated, and they thought they really enjoyed the craft and loved what they were doing, but they wanted to feel that a little more and to settle into that and to write with purpose and feel good about that just in and of itself. So that is what I narrowed down to. I'm not making promises about, I can get you from here to here. But I'm saying, if you want to write and enjoy what you're writing and get to a place where your voice as a writer feels authentic and you enjoy your writing, this is the channel for you. This is what I want to help you with.
Do you think that narrowing down and magnification on exactly who you're trying to target, know who you're speaking to, do you think that has attributed to the growth that your channel has seen? Because you're not even at 200 videos yet and almost at 40,000 subscribers. So you've seen a good bit of success. And so these people that you're trying to reach are finding you. Do you believe that narrowing in and really being intentional about that has helped you?
Yeah, I think it has, because search results were the driver of the channel for the first year or so, as is every new channel really. But there was nothing I could add specifically to that, because every aspect of writing had been covered by people before. I couldn't make a story about a video about characterization and expect a big audience from that. So narrowing down into that whole avenue of, yeah, this could work, but so could this, and so could this, and taking the pressure off a little bit of writers, because I like to speak to writers as in a sort of, in the kind of mode of, don't worry so much, don't criticize yourself so much, enjoy the craft, lean into it, and your writing will be better from that. And I think that's the point that I tried to follow once I discovered from the comment section how much that resonated with people. I was like, here it is. Here's the thing that everybody misses. And funnily enough, it was exactly what I'd been missing beforehand, feeling isolated and not enjoying things as much as I could. So that helped a lot.
Was there or has there been a turning point for you where you've thought to yourself, okay, this could be more than just a hobby, or this YouTube thing might be something that I need to invest even more time in? Do you remember that moment or that point or that shift?
I think it was a video early on that I made that was just a bit different, and it got more of a reaction than I was expecting. It was a video about how to make a book trailer for your book. And I just posted it not really expecting much, and it took off a little bit. I've taken it down now because it's very old and stuff. But as soon as I saw the possibility for a very specific type of video to do well and to find an audience, it was then that I was like, okay, the audience are out there. The people want this kind of content and they will find it. So it's just a matter of keeping on changing things and making videos until I can tap into that a little bit. And I thought, okay, I'm going to keep going with this, even though progress is slow in the first year. It's possible. So let's keep going.
That's awesome. That's a really cool. As far as your approach to SEO and thumbnails and packaging, you mentioned early on in a YouTube channel's journey, SEO and reach really, unless you have an audience from somewhere else, comes primarily through search results, whether it be through YouTube or search engines, or now a lot, 20% of my traffic comes from AI tools where people are searching in Chat GPT and my video comes up. So with that being the case, what is your strategy for packaging as far as like your thumbnails and your titles? Can you walk us through how you've landed on where you are today?
Sure. I think I'm pretty bad at it, to be honest. I've settled into my most recent thumbnails are aesthetic ones more than anything else. I think they're not the most effective, but I've made many changes since I started uploading, and I've always been in the same range in terms of click-through rate and titles. Titles and thumbnails are both the same. I've changed things here and there and not seen a huge amount of difference because my audience is still fairly small by YouTube standards. So I got a lot of stuff from the analytics to say, audience isn't big enough. We can't really tell you the difference between this and this. So the main focus has been to make the videos clear what the subject matter is without being clickbaity too much. Authenticity is really important to me, and I don't want people to ever feel scammed by a video. If I say something in a title and I don't deliver it in the video, then that's not helping anybody. Even me as the creator, I might get a click here and there, but people aren't going to come back after that. So I knew that it would be a slow build because my whole approach is understated and calm. Some people have said it's like calming to watch the videos. They're not in your face. Here's what you need to do now. They are more relaxed. So the thumbnails and titles go along with that. They're not sensational. They're not hugely attention grabbing. and it's worked to a point, but I definitely think that's an area that I could work on and make a bit more of.
I interrupt the conversation just briefly to tell you a bit about a new service that we're offering for creators that has been extremely, extremely popular. So we are offering channel audits or channel reviews for $50. You can get one of these reviews of your channel where I will sit down personally, watch a couple of your videos, take a look at your channel with a different set of eyes, and then deliver you the 8 to 10 minute video to your email. And it's been a great way for people who are not quite ready for personal one-on-one coaching, but would like to get a different set of eyes on their channel, maybe help them set them on the right direction, give them a couple of tips or pointers. And if this is something you're interested in, definitely check out the show notes down below. Now, back to the conversation. You did a video a month ago titled AI Steals More Than Just Your Stories. Great title, by the way. And the thumbnail, you just have three words. It just says, don't risk it, and then a period. And then it's got a really high quality image of you sitting down in front of your microphone, kind of like you're gonna tell us a story to give us some knowledge. I say that to give an example of your packaging, in that I feel like you're doing a much better job than even you're letting on. You let the image do the talking in the thumbnail and put 2 to 3 words maximum on the thumbnail. And to me, you have a style. The colors are a bit faded. You have the same font that you're using. And so for me, I feel like maybe you don't think that you have a streamlined kind of packaging brand, but I feel like you do. And so I feel like the click-through rate on that video, I can see why it did so well. And so I think you might be underselling yourself a bit.
I do tend to do that.
What do you believe works and doesn't work when it comes to thumbnails? Like with what you've learned and you've pivoted and you've made changes in the way your thumbnails work, what have you found to be things that are positive and things that just like you were like, hey, that doesn't work. We're canning that one.
For me, the biggest thing, and the thing I always bear in mind when I'm trying to create a thumbnail, is clarity is above all else has to be there. I know that, I don't know what the exact figure is, but I know there's like a fraction of a second or something that people will look at your thumbnail for and decide whether they're going to even read the text on screen or whatever else. So I used to put thumbnails that had a lot more text, and they had 2 different sides, maybe with text on both sides, and too much detail. People are only looking at this for a fraction of a second. And it is easier to an extent when you're running off search results, because people can then, they're expecting what they see, they're looking for certain words. That can make it easier. You don't perhaps have to do as much work with the thumbnail. But with a video like the AI one, I almost didn't want that to get as much attention as it did, because I don't want to spend my time talking about it so negatively and being so contentious. But I quickly realized, and also I committed what I thought was a cardinal sin with that video by using a screenshot of the recording as the thumbnail and just putting text on it. But it's worked out because of that clarity, I think. It's immediately obvious what the video's about, and I guess it's pretty attention grabbing, probably more so than I meant to be, but it's worked out, so.
Yeah. If the thumbnail and title combination, like you're right, we have a split second. Unfortunately, a lot of people are just scrolling endlessly on that home feed, which I think is bad for us as humans, but that's just where we are in the algorithm-based society that we live in. They're scrolling the home feed, and you only have a split second to get that attention of a new viewer. And if the thumbnail and title evoke that curiosity of the clarity, is the way you put it, that's really powerful, and it will in turn help you improve your click-through rate. What does your content planning process look like? It looks like you've got a pretty consistent upload cadence, but how does the process behind the scenes look like for you as a creator of planning your videos out?
So luckily, fairly early on, I had a sponsored video from Millernote. They give me a kind of lifetime access to use their software, and I'd gone from then just writing a script in a Google Drive, Google Docs, to planning it with a document on Millernote, and then putting notes about the possible thumbnail ideas on the rare occasion I actually have them. So I go to Millernote, I will make a brief sort of brain dump there of a few lines about what the heart of the video is going to be all about, and then anything else that I can think of immediately at the time. Then I'll let that simmer for a little while, and then come back to it and just write a first draft of the entire video, and then I will revise that after, say, another day or so has passed. And that's something I learned about, an approach I learned from my own fiction writing, really, is you can write a first draft and think it's great, But then when you come back to it, there's always something you can improve about it and make clearer or make more direct. So I often do end up making decent changes to it, but there's always at least two drafts. And then once they're finished, I will read over it immediately before recording the video. And then it's usually as clear as it can be, really.
And when you're recording the video, are you reading directly from the script? Or are you kind of bullet pointing topics and highlights? How do you go about recording it?
It's mostly from the script, but I do ad lib here and there because there is just something is lost between actually delivering lines to the camera and from writing them. There's still a difference in there, no matter how much planning you do. So sometimes I can detect that something's not quite coming across the same way, so I'll just talk around it. But for the most part, I'd say about 80 to 90% of the script stays the same, and I just go off my teleprompter, and that's that. It's the quickest way. I used to have the text up on my laptop screen, read a line, deliver a line, and then the first videos on my channel, you could see every line. I was turning back a little bit and I couldn't quite cut all of that off. And I quickly learned, okay, I need to get a teleprompter, so I'm not doing that so much. And it's really changed things.
In my coaching calls and our creators mastermind group that we have here around the podcast, I'm getting much more frequent questions about burnout. And so I want to ask you a question as a creator who's been doing this now for 5 years, since 2020, going on 6 years now. How often are you posting, and how do you balance the consistency with burnout and not burning out?
Yeah, I discovered fairly early on that it wasn't going to work for me to make 2 uploads a week. That's what I started with. And I ran out of things to say. I ran out of time to edit the videos. So I knew I needed to drop it down. So I dropped it down to 1 a week. And then I dropped it down to 2 a month, which is what I'm currently on now. That gives me enough time to properly plan and edit my videos. And I also I'm not on any other social media. I don't post to Instagram or TikTok or anything really, because when I tried to incorporate that, that was just straight burnout immediately. I was just fighting fires all the time and trying to get stuff across all platforms rather than just sticking consistently to one that I thought was my strongest anyway. My schedule is pretty slow, but it fits me. And every time I try to increase it to 1 a week, which I do sometimes just as an experiment, my views go down a bit. So I figure my audience is used to 2 videos a month, and if they just concentrate on those 2 and I concentrate on making those 2, that seems to work for everyone.
How do you balance your time between your personal, other business endeavors, family, things of that nature? Are there guardrails that you've put in place? Because I had a question on our mastermind call yesterday as we're recording this, and they were just talking about they've been doing this for a while. They're still passionate about the content they create, but they're experiencing a bit of burnout. What are things that you've done to prevent that, other than the upload schedule being the way that it is?
I think I'm quite methodical, and that's helped. I will kind of bank ideas for later down the line so that I never get to a point where I'm panicking about what to upload, because that kind of mental stress really brings burnout down on me if I'm thinking, oh, I don't know what to do. I've got no way forward. So planning helps a lot. But generally, I'm quite structured in my days. I do YouTube stuff in the afternoon after a lot of my other work is already done. Because YouTube is reliant solely on me and I'm only answerable to me on YouTube stuff, I find it's easier to get all the other work out the way where I have deadlines and people to interact with. I get that all done, and then YouTube is my reward for the end of the day because it's a creative task that I enjoy. And I know that when I sit down in the afternoon after my lunch break or whatever, that's YouTube time, and I give myself plenty of it. But occasionally, quite a lot, my wife will tell you, it does spill into weekends as well, and I end up working all day to edit a video in a really complicated fashion that probably would have been simpler if I'd just done a simple cut, but it's what it is.
I've been there. I was there about a month ago. We were leaving for a vacation, and I try to make sure I have my regular videos releasing like normal while I'm gone, as well as the podcast, as well as some other business related things. And there were a couple of nights there leading into us trying to pack and the kids going crazy, being excited, where as a creator, man, it's hard to hit the off button or the off switch. And so it's good to hear other folks like you say that. Let's talk about monetization, where you are in the channel size that you are. You've mentioned previously you've had channel sponsors before. Talk about the different avenues of income, of revenue for you through the channel, and then maybe at the end of the answer, give us an example of what an average month income looks like for you as a creator.
Sure. I should mention still working part-time in my day job. So I was full-time for the first 4 or 5 years of the channel. Went part-time last year and I'm getting laid off now. So at the end of this month, I'll be full-time whether I like it or not. And I do like it. But so the main one obviously is AdSense. So that comes through based on the amount of views I get. It's usually about $300 or something like that. There is the odd brand deal or sponsored video. I don't get too many of them, and everyone says this all the time, but I'm really picky about the ones that I actually accept, and I have to use whatever it is they're looking to promote before I can pass it on to my readers or writers. Then the main one, though, is my editing work, really, because I talk about it in my YouTube videos and I direct people to go to my website and read my work or have a look at everything else that I've got up there. But yeah, I run an editing service where I'll look at people's short stories or their microfiction or their novel, even an extract or a full novel. I'll work through it and help them make it better and clean up the manuscript and all that stuff. So that's the main one, and that's where I spend most of my time, really. If we're talking about my business as a whole, that's pretty much it. And I have a Patreon as well, which brings in a small amount every month, but I'm still building that and not really got started with it.
And as far as the editing goes, have you found that YouTube has been a big booster to get people there? So you're building that trust through the free content you're providing on YouTube, and then they're like, oh, Kieran is really good at what he's talking about. He has this service. I've just written this thing. So is YouTube the main driver of that service and that you provide?
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of my customers come to me from YouTube and they'll drop me a note to say, I love the videos and the videos have been really helpful. And I think sometimes they're a little apprehensive because I get quite a lot of new writers and this might be the first time they've ever gone through an editing process or sent their writing to anyone, which is a really big thing. So I'm always really keen to make sure they have a friendly face and a friendly interaction there. But yeah, the majority of them definitely come through YouTube. There's a bit of search on my website, but I've done nothing for SEO at all. So YouTube, I do rely on.
In an average month, how much do you make?
Probably only about $2,500, something like that. Three on
Yeah.
a good month if I have a brand deal as well, but that can vary massively. So yeah,
I'll just say, working with as many creators as I have, I know I hate that you're getting laid off, but that was the driver for me to go full time 16
yeah,
years ago into content is I got laid off as well. And I hate that happened, but sometimes that's just the push that you need. And when you're able to devote more time, that 2,500 to 3,000 can turn into 6,000, 8,000 a month pretty quickly once you're solely dedicated on that. What has been the hardest part about being a creator that maybe most people don't see from the outside?
I think balance, really. We did touch on it before, but I suppose people talk about work-life balance a lot. But as much as it's fun to be a creative and to be a creator and make videos on YouTube, it does also take energy, even if you enjoy it. And from working a full-time job and trying to build up a channel all the time, it does take a lot of energy, and burnout is like ever present. So you have to be really careful with that. But the thing with me that extends beyond just YouTube to my business in general is knowing when to stop, when to close the laptop or shut down the PC and say, that's it for the day, I'm done. And I'm still always trying to dial that in a little bit more and stop myself from pushing through to just work, because I'm a work now, play later kind of person to a fault. And I know that. But it's good to have an area to improve on and to work on. Otherwise, where are we going? But that's definitely my biggest challenge, I think.
Are there any tools that you swear by? Maybe it's a software, camera, hardware, productivity app that helps you behind the scenes of the YouTube channel?
Yeah, I definitely lean on Millernote quite a lot. I have the homepage on my Millernote account is a list of 7 or 8 to-do lists with dates and alerts on them. So from my YouTube to editing to Patreon, it's got a list of what I need to do next on each of those. So that's the problem with shutting off too, because I always have this whole plan of things I need to get done. And some of them have got due dates, some of them haven't, but there's always work to be done. But without that, I would struggle to organize myself quite as well as I do. So that's been really handy.
Is there a big goal or a goal you've set for yourself as a creator that you haven't hit yet that you're willing to share and maybe talk about the progress towards it?
Sure. There's a couple really. I would love that 100K plaque, as everybody says, and maybe in time I'll get there. But the main one was going full time with being as a writer and editor and a YouTube creator. As it happens, that's been thrust upon me at this point. But and there's a certain sense of frustration there really, because I did want to choose when I did that, but at the same time, would I ever have left a dependable job to take a leap like this? I don't know. So I'm getting that one kind of by default, but that was what I've been working towards for the last few years, is eventually getting to a point where I can support myself and go full time.
As we close out today, what is a final message that you would give to aspiring creators, whether they're starting or thinking about starting, trying to grow or trying to monetize, wherever they are in the journey? What message would you say to them listening to this podcast today?
I think, honestly, be real and be authentic, because you have to build, or I've found that you have to build a foundation of authenticity. And if you do, people see that, and that's how you build trust with an audience. You always hear the line, fake it till you make it. But the thing is, at one point, that could all come undone for you, and then you lose the whole platform that you've built. If you build it on authenticity, you tell the truth, you show your weaknesses as well as your strengths, especially in something like writing or another creative field, that's not a weakness to show that. It builds empathy with an audience, because we're all looking to improve. So that's a mantra I went with: be real, be honest and authentic, and you're just going to grow from there. And people are attracted to that and magnetized to that. So that would be my biggest piece of advice.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Again, you can find his YouTube channel. It's just his name. I'll link it down below, as well as a link to his website. But Kieran, we have really enjoyed having you on the show this week, and we'll talk to you next time. And that's a wrap on this week's Creator Conversation here on the Creators Hub podcast. My name's Dusty. Again, you can connect with me with the links down below. If you're interested in any of our creator services, they'll be linked down below. Again, those are private one-on-one coaching with me, our mastermind group, as well as our channel audits and review. We have an email newsletter. It's called the Entrepreneur's Minute that I write every Friday, and it's just a behind-the-scenes look of what it's like running a business that I run. So if you're interested in that, definitely check the Entrepreneur's Minute newsletter out. Don't forget to subscribe to the show, whether it's an audio podcast feed you listen to or you watch on YouTube or Spotify, whatever it is, subscribe so you know when we go live with the new conversations. Also, don't forget, if you think you would be a great guest for the show, or you know someone who would be a great fit, please let me know. Email me, dusty@dustyporter.com. And with that said, have a great day whenever you're listening to this, and we'll talk to you next week.